Aesop's Fable EP85, The Deer Who Measured the Meadow. Scene 1, The Search for the Perfect Playground. In a lush, green forest, there lived a young and curious deer named Daisy. Daisy loved to run and play with her friends in the open meadows, where they could leap and race as much as they wanted. One day, as she explored the forest, Daisy came across several different meadows. Each meadow was beautiful, but Daisy wanted to find the biggest one where she and her friends could play all day. As she stood at the edge of the first meadow, Daisy thought, "How can I know which meadow is the largest? I need to measure them to find out." Daisy realized that to find the biggest meadow, she would need to measure the perimeter of each one, the distance all the way around the meadow. Scene 2, Learning to Measure the Perimeter. Daisy knew that her friend, Ollie the owl, was very wise and could help her figure out how to measure the meadows. She trotted over to Ollie's tree and called up to him. "Ollie, I found several meadows where my friends and I could play, but I want to find the largest one. How can I measure them to know which one is the biggest?" Ollie hooted softly and said, "To find out which meadow is the largest, you need to measure the perimeter of each meadow. The perimeter is the total distance around the edges of the meadow. Once you measure all the sides, you add them together to find the perimeter." Daisy listened carefully. "So, if I walk along the edge of the meadow and measure each side, I can add them up to find the total distance around it?" "Exactly," Ollie replied. "Once you know the perimeter of each meadow, you can compare them to see which one is the largest." Scene 3, Measuring the Meadows. With Ollie's advice in mind, Daisy set off to measure the first meadow. She started at one corner and walked along the edge, counting her steps carefully. The first side was 40 steps long, the second side was 30 steps, the third side was 40 steps, and the fourth side was 30 steps. Daisy added up the distances. 40 steps plus 30 steps plus 40 steps plus 30 steps equals 140 steps. Next, Daisy moved on to the second meadow. She measured the sides and found that the first side was 50 steps, the second side was 20 steps, the third side was 50 steps, and the fourth side was 20 steps. She added up these distances. 50 steps plus 20 steps plus 50 steps plus 20 steps equals 140 steps. Finally, Daisy measured the third meadow. This one was a bit different, with one side measuring 60 steps, another side measuring 30 steps, the third side at 60 steps, and the last side at 30 steps. Daisy added these distances. 60 steps plus 30 steps plus 60 steps plus 30 steps equals 180 steps. Scene 4, Choosing the Biggest Meadow. After measuring all three meadows, Daisy compared the perimeters. The first meadow had a perimeter of 140 steps. The second meadow also had a perimeter of 140 steps. The third meadow had a perimeter of 180 steps. Daisy realized that the third meadow, with a perimeter of 180 steps, was the largest of the three. She was excited to find such a big, open space for her and her friends to play. Daisy quickly ran back to her friends and led them to the third meadow. As they raced and played in the vast, open space, Daisy felt proud of her work. She knew that by measuring the perimeter, she had found the best place for them to enjoy. Her friends were impressed by Daisy's clever thinking. "How did you know this meadow was the biggest?" one of them asked. "I measured the perimeter," Daisy explained. "By measuring the distance around each meadow and adding it up, I found that this one was the largest. It's a simple way to make sure we have the most space to play." From that day on, Daisy and her friends always made sure to measure the perimeters of new meadows before choosing a place to play. Thanks to Daisy's mathematical skills, they never had to worry about running out of space for their games. Moral of the story: measuring and calculating the perimeter helps us find the best spaces to meet our needs. By using math to measure and compare, we can make informed decisions and choose the best options for our activities.